Seems like most of us have arrived for this evening, including online. I can see the folks online, but a warm welcome to all of you this summer evening. And just wanted to ask for a moment because there were a couple of people who couldn't really hear me online, so just want to do a sound check. Can everyone hear me well? How about online? Is there anyone that, you don't have to all respond, but if anybody can hear me, it would be great to let me know now in the chat. Oh, good. Okay. Someone at least can hear. All right. So why don't we just start this evening by sitting together quietly for a couple of minutes, just to help us all arrive here in body and mind and spirit. Just an invitation to close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Just dropping your awareness down from the head into the body, into the breath. Just sitting together quietly for a little while. We'll have a much longer chance to meditate together later on. And before I introduce the topic of the evening, by the way, this is a Wednesday night class on Buddhist mindfulness. And I always like to say a few things about what a really precious gift it is to practice in community. And at least during COVID, when I practiced a lot online in community, it still felt very much like a community practice, even seeing people online. It felt like a gift to be able to practice together and support one another. And so I just wanted to share something in the spirit of inclusiveness. I'd like to say a few words about that normally at the beginning of practice time. And I know Jeff has been very active and with a lot of participants at the Pride Festival. And since this is Pride Month, I just wanted to say a few words that I came across online on the Thich Nhat Hanh site. It's a Buddhist practice center. They interviewed a monk in the tradition at Plum Village in France, Buddhist monk. And his name is Brother Troy Bao Tang. He's an Asian Buddhist monk in the Order of Interbeing at Plum Village Monastery in France. And he shared a heartfelt reflection on nurturing inclusiveness at Buddhist practice centers. So I just wanted to share what he said. As a queer monk in the Plum Village Rainbow Sangha, my aim is to contribute to a world where every person, regardless of their gender identity and sexual orientation, is recognized as valuable and deserving of respect and love. In several interviews in the spring of this year, I was asked, can LGBTQIA+ individuals be included in Buddhism? My response always has been, the Buddha's teachings are about the transformation and healing of suffering. All human beings deserve to recognize, take care of, and transform their suffering, and to enjoy happiness and freedom in life, regardless of their identity. If we embrace humans, animals, plants, and the earth, why would we question the inclusion of LGBTQIA+ individuals? And I'm sure he said these words also in the spirit of one's cultural heritage, or age, or different levels of ability, and so forth. So I just wanted to offer that into our practice space for this evening. So this evening I would like to talk about mindfulness of the body. And I will be, over the course of many weeks, introducing all 4 foundations of mindfulness that the Buddha talked about in his lifetime. And so these teachings actually were considered the discourse on the 4 foundations or establishments of mindfulness that the Buddha offered in his lifetime. And the first one is mindfulness of the body. And we began talking about this and experiencing this together in the last class already, when we experienced mindfulness of breathing at a deeper level, which obviously the breath is experienced inside the body. And what I find really interesting and poignant in this is that the Buddha shared that just simply by practicing mindfulness of the body alone, we can find our way to full enlightenment, to full awakening. And there's people that ask, well, what does this actually mean? Full enlightenment, full awakening, nibbana, or nirvana, the term in Pali or in Sanskrit. And I love that what Bhikkhu Bodhi, who's a quite popular Theravada monk right now, a Western monk, he's actually originally from Germany, what he says about it. He basically says that enlightenment is having reached a state of total mental health. And I really love that sort of as an offering of a modern version of what enlightenment means. If we can offer words at all to describe what it means, most teachers say that you can't describe it in language, but I love this term, a state of total mental health, to describe enlightenment. So the body in our meditation practice and our Buddhist practice can really become a great teacher for us when we deeply connect with the nature of the body. And when we connect deeply with the nature of the body, what we find are what in Buddhism are called the 3 marks of existence, what the Buddha also referred to as the 3 characteristics of life. So these are truths that the Buddha discovered in his meditations that are not just truths in Buddhism. They're basically truths as far as I understand and have experienced them. It doesn't matter if you're Buddhist or Hindu or Muslim or Jewish or follow another faith tradition. These are marks of existence that for all of us that live in this human realm are true. And certainly, though the Buddha never said to take anything of what he said for granted as a dogma, he always said, there's actually a saying, I can't remember how it's said in Pali, I think it's ehipassiko, and it means something like, come and see for yourself. So the Buddha always encouraged us to experience on our own his teachings and not just to take them for granted or to take them as truths. He really encouraged us to experience them as truths. So these three characteristics that the Buddha spoke about, I mentioned them last time as well in relation to the breath, are impermanence, non-self, and dukkha. And this word dukkha, we hear anytime anyone ever gives a talk pretty much on Buddhism, and it translates as many things. It can translate as mental suffering, it can translate as physical pain, as stress, as unsatisfactoriness. So these three marks of existence, impermanence, non-self, and dukkha, I would like to explore this evening together in relation to the body. So the first one, impermanence, when we drop into the body in meditation, we soon see, if we pay attention, for example, to our bodily sensations, that everything inside the body really is the process. Nothing is ever stagnant, nothing is ever fixed, nothing is ever the same. One moment there might be an itch that you're experiencing on the nose, maybe there's a tingling in the toe, and then all of a sudden it shifts, and then you become aware of heat in the body, and then when you step outside later, there might be coolness in the body. So that is just to say we can really deeply understand this nature of impermanence inside our bodies just by paying attention to our bodies and our meditation practice this evening. And maybe even now, you might see, if you pay attention, how things sort of flow and shift, how the sensations in the hand might be a tingling, maybe there might be a pressure in the shoulders, and everything just sort of keeps shifting around in your experience. It never really stays the same from moment to moment. And then the second mark of existence, that of non-self, can be a little bit more complicated to understand. You know, when a Buddhist talks to you and says, well, there's actually not a self, there's not a me, my, or mine, and you might wonder, well, what are you talking about? Of course, this is me. And when we come to explore that a little bit deeper in our meditation practice, again, we really see that the body is simply a process. And the Buddha acknowledged that we have to use language when we speak with one another, but really he often referred to, or really always referred to, what we consider an I simply as the 5 aggregates. And these, we're not going to talk about them at length, but they're basically just the body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. And he pointed to them being in flux all the time, so that we can never really say, well, this is me fixed in time, but because we're always changing from moment to moment. And he also points out that if this body was really me or mine, we would like to manipulate it so that we would never become ill, we would never grow old, and we would never die. But as we all know, there's an aging process going on in our bodies moment to moment. Sometimes we might find us in periods of health, and other times we might find each other in periods of sickness. So it points to this non-self in Buddhism. And it also points to, when we come to peace with that, how that really largely diminishes this experience of dukkha or suffering in ourselves, when we don't cling to have a certain experience in our body, heart, and mind. So again, if we wish for the body never to be sick, never to die, never to grow old, we're really out of alignment with the nature of this body, and we will likely suffer as a consequence. And the Buddha actually said that our greatest delusion is that we see everything around us, other people, nature, everything else dying all the time, and we think that we're not included in that. We're in denial that we actually one day will die as well. So the Buddha, in his lifetime, in his monastic community of monks and nuns, actually asked of all the monks and nuns every day to recite these daily recollections. And I would like to highlight 3 of them this evening. There's actually 5 altogether, but 3 pertain to the body themselves. So he asked everyone to recite number 1, I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. And number 3, I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. And I have to say that I have been reciting these most mornings in my meditation for a long time now, and I really saw how they impacted me in a positive way last year when I went home to Germany to be with my dying father the last couple of weeks of his life. I was in his hospital bed. He had severe dementia, and he wasn't able to move anymore, and he was being fed and changed and so forth. And it felt like a really sacred experience to be with him and to just know, yeah, his body is now 85 years old. He's had a very active life. And, it's time to let go of his body. And even though he couldn't really communicate that much anymore, we had this beautiful interbeing where I sort of reflected on his life and all his beautiful qualities, and also just say, if whenever you feel ready to let go, you have lived 85 years on this earth, and when you feel it's time to let go, just want to let you know I'm not holding you back, your wife is not holding you back, my stepmother. And it just felt like such a sacred process. And I think I'll always remember the morning. I was privileged that the morning that I was told that he died at the hospital, which happened to be the hospital that I was born in. It was really amazing. And me being the first one to get there and having this time, like 45 minutes with his body, and I opened the door, and I can tell you that several years ago, I wouldn't even have been able to go to a funeral with an open casket, because I would have been really skittish and not wanted to see a dead body, would have been really frightened. But because of these teachings, I opened the door very gently and I saw his body lying there. And the first words out of my mouth were basically, Dad, I'm so glad you made it. Because he was in a lot of pain and it was very uncomfortable and it was the best for him to go. And that is not to say that I also didn't experience a lot of grief, but I could really see in that time how much these teachings on aging, sickness, and death helped me in my own life, and it felt really encouraging and very important to my path and my practice. So when we can learn to deeply contemplate and accept the nature of this body, that it's subject to aging, sickness, and death, it can help free us from what the Buddha called the 3 poisons. And here he didn't mean poisons like arson. Is it called arson? Arson. Yeah, arson. Okay. He's basically, thank you. Sometimes as a second language speaker, I still don't get these words quite right, so I appreciate your help. But anyway, so these are mental poisons that he was referring to, and these are the 3 poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion, also often called desire, aversion, and ignorance. And one example of how these 3 poisons manifest is through our attitude towards the body. So For example, the wish to have a more youthful looking body, or for the body to not grow old and age, is an example of desire or wanting or greed, which is this first poison that that the Buddha referred to. And as a side note, I also want to add, though, that it's also a manifestation of an ageist society that we live in the United States, where the spirit that we're all told to live up to is a youthful appearance. And to counter that, we can practice acceptance towards the body and celebrate it just as it is. We can learn that through our Buddhist practice, through our meditations, to really come in alignment with the nature of this human body. And again, we can see clearly that the nature of this body is to grow old, to sicken, and to die, and that there's really nothing wrong with it. It's not a mistake. I often remind myself, it's not a mistake that we're experiencing this aging and death. This is how the human body functions. It's part of its nature. So when we can accept this truth inside of ourselves, it can really help to severely diminish our mental suffering that we might experience in relation to our body. So for anyone who has a meditation practice, or who has maybe even just meditated once, I imagine that you've all had pain arise in the body. Is there anyone who's not experienced pain in the body, either in meditation or in their daily lives? Yeah. And again, that's not a mistake. Again, I love what this Bhikkhu Bodhi, this Theravada monk, said. He said that he discovered in his meditations that, yeah, this body is painful. It's of its nature to have pain arise in the body. Again, it's not a mistake. So when we come from the premise that this body should be pain-free, we're really setting ourselves up for dukkha, for suffering. And what's beautiful about meditation is that we can learn to be mindful of the pain in a non-judgmental way in our meditation. We can investigate it with curiosity. So when there's pain in the body, we can orient our mind to be curious about the sensations in the body that we normally label as pain. And this really helps to take this mental sting out of the experience of what we label as pain. When we can simply note, oh, I'm experiencing pressure or tightness in the shoulders. There's a throbbing in my knee right now. There's a stabbing. So it really helps to give it a name, and instead of saying, oh, it's painful in my body, to say, well, wait a minute, let me look a little bit deeper. What's actually going on here in my body? What are the sensations? Okay, there's a tingling, there's a throbbing, there's a pressure, there's heat. Maybe my heart is beating faster. It all helps sort of take the sting out of what we label as pain in the body. And most importantly, when we have this experience of pain, we can cultivate compassion towards the pain by tending to it and holding space for it, rather than pushing it away. So this pushing away would be an example of the second poison, which is the poison of hatred, or in this case, it would be probably softer to say aversion towards the experience of pain in the body. And then the third poison of delusion comes into play when we expect that our body will not have pain, that it's supposed to feel perfectly comfortable and in good health at all times. So I said earlier about practicing with not scratching an itchy nose, for example, or not turning on the air conditioner right away when it feels hot to you, are really good ways to begin to practice with what feels uncomfortable in the body before we learn to more actively practice with what we label as pain in the body. It might be softer and easier just to begin with a scratch with an itch on our nose, and we say, well, what would happen if I actually don't scratch this nose right away and react with aversion? Because really that's just fostering aversion in our minds by having to take care of the itch right away, or whenever we don't feel comfortable in the body in any way, just to change it right away. And just to learn to be with what is and softening around the experience. Again, it helps take the sting out of the experience of aversion. And very important is to practice gratitude towards our body, especially if you live in a body where you experience a lot of discomfort, a lot of unpleasantness, a lot of pain. It's really also important to tune into the areas of the body or the parts of the body or just the body in itself where we feel like, okay, the body is serving us well, it functions well in these ways, or it has at least this little bit of measure of health that I have been given. So we also tune our mind towards the good in the body, towards what is functioning well, what we can be grateful for. I think sometimes the Buddhist teachings are most misunderstood, especially when it comes to suffering. People say, well, I don't really want anything to do with Buddhism because all it talks about is suffering. And in reality, the Buddha just wanted to really highlight that if you live in this human existence, that you will most likely or most definitely encounter some type of stress, some type of discomfort, some type of pain. And the more we can come into alignment with it, at least in my experience, the more I can also really tune in towards what I'm grateful for. That this next breath is something that I can be present to, that I'm alive in this moment. So when we place our attention on the body, we begin to notice what is actually here. And like I said, this can include the presence of pain. And then when we practice meditation, when we sit down and meditation, we can begin to notice that every time we have a desire to move our posture, for example, it's actually an attempt to alleviate some kind of pain or discomfort in our body. And you might play with that this evening yourself in your meditation. If you notice, oh, I really want to shift my posture right now, and then you might notice, oh, it's because something is not feeling right, something is not feeling comfortable. And I will give some instructions about how to work with that in meditation this evening, or how we could work with that in meditation this evening. So can we begin to experience pain in the body without wishing it away? So I'd like to explore these teachings around the body in our meditation now. And so if you feel ready, also online, just take a moment to set yourself up in the meditation posture that works for you. If you feel you've been sitting all day and you really just want to stand for a little while, the Buddha said we can practice meditation in all of the postures that the human body can take. So especially if you're online and you feel like it's been a really stressful day, for me the best way to be comfortable is to lie down. That's perfectly fine. So I just encourage you to take a moment to find the posture that works for you. And if you feel comfortable, you can gently close your eyes. If for whatever reason that does not feel comfortable, maybe just finding a gaze spot in front of you on the ground to help steady your eyes and still have this invitation to bring your attention inwards into the body. And just beginning by bringing your attention to the weight of the body as you're sitting here. Feeling how your buttocks connect with the chair, your hands resting in your lap or on your legs, the feet touching the ground, maybe the whole back body touching the ground if you're lying down. And perhaps even noticing the felt sense of your clothes on the skin. See if you can invite your mind to rest on the body, just like the body is resting on the chair or cushion or ground. And when you notice that your mind has wandered, as it will, undoubtedly, from time to time, slowly invite your attention back to feel the general sense of the body sitting or lying or standing here. So for this evening's meditation, I would like to invite you to place your awareness in the body, in the part or area of the body where in this moment you're feeling some type of discomfort or pain present. What body sensations do you notice in that place? Maybe tightness, pressure, throbbing, heat, pulsing. And then also notice how your mind reacts to the presence of pain or discomfort in the body. Is there a desire for the pain to go away? Is there fear? Is there aversion towards the pain? And sense what could be the most compassionate and wise response to the presence of pain or discomfort. Is it useful to mindfully adjust your posture? Or could it be beneficial not to move and to notice what happens when you stay with the painful or uncomfortable sensations? Do they shift in any way? Do they become stronger? Do they subside? Shifting away from the experience of pain, see if you can bring your attention to a place in the body that is free from pain. What do you sense in that body part? Perhaps lightness, coolness, openness, flow. Also noticing how the mind reacts to the absence of pain or discomfort. Is there a sense of relief, a wish for the whole body to be free from pain, a mental leaning towards what feels comfortable? And lastly, can you hold space for both the parts or areas of your body where pain is present and where pain is absent? Not favoring one over the other, simply being mindful of the sensations in the body. You can continue to explore this in your meditation as we move into a period of silence now within our own meditation. wanted to leave a little time at the end for questions. And that's also, the invitation extends to online. So if you would like to type any questions into the chat, please feel free. I'll try to do my best to follow the chat. And of course, for us here also inside the temple, if you have any questions about today's practice or any comments related to what we experienced together tonight, this is the time. Yes.
I just have a very a big connection to the pain thing. I had my hip replaced almost a year ago. So for me, it was horrible. The pain was really, really bad. But now I'm so grateful to not have pain. So it's kind of like a full circle where I was very depressed and down and it hurt so bad I couldn't, appreciate living. And now I just have more respect for my body and so much more grateful for it. So it's almost like there was a reason for it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but kind of going with appreciating the pain, because in the long run for me that made me respect my body. This is kind of not where I want to eliminate all pain, but definitely not.
So it sounds like you came to a deeper appreciation towards your body because of what you experienced with the hip replacement and the severe pain as you're describing in the first stretch, maybe leading up to now. Yeah. Yeah.
Being grateful, just the absence of that kind of pain, and also more appreciating and accepting when other people tell me they have chronic pain. I'm more sympathetic, more embracing, and what can I do to help?
Yeah. So it's helped you to learn, it sounds like, compassion towards yourself and also be more compassionate towards others. And I think that's a really good point, especially with pain, because sometimes there can be a feeling in Buddhism, well, in meditation, we're just going to sit here sternly and we're going to sit through everything no matter what arises, and yet, we are human beings, and there might be an invitation to learn how to hold space for pain, in a way that doesn't create so much mental suffering, but that can be quite a process. And what you have established or what you have learned is just really to be more compassionate and appreciative towards your body, and I think that's a beautiful gift that's maybe come off it. It might not have felt like a gift a year ago, but it sounds like you're coming to that place now. So, thank you for sharing that. It's quite a journey you've been on. Yes.
Hi, thank you. So for normal meditation, if I feel pain, I sort of just, maybe squash it and keep focusing back on my breath. But tonight, I think because we talked about body pain, whenever it would come up during meditation, I became hyper-focused on it. And I don't like that kind of meditation. I don't know if that happened to anybody else, but I like just suppressing it and moving along back to the breath. And that was just not possible for me tonight.
Yes, so what is it like if you feel like you can, when you actually learn or you come into a place where you're paying attention to the pain or to the sensations, and then you feel like, well, I'd rather go back to my breath. And I think the important part here is that whenever you find, all of these meditations, mindfulness is just an invitation to experience it. And especially if you feel, this really is beginning to feel overwhelming right now and I can't actually be with it. If you're then staying with it, what you're actually practicing is you're driving in aversion. And that's not, that's actually not the goal of meditation. It's a beautiful way to keep returning in the breath, through the breath, as long as you feel, I can stay with the breath easily. And yet when sometimes in meditation, something calls our attention more so than the breath. And we might just say, okay, let me just see if I can be this for a little while. Can I learn something from it? Maybe this is something that I would label pain or discomfort. What is it actually that's going on here? There was this invitation to just experience it as a body sensation rather than a pain, because when we label something pain, again, the aversion might come up and it already right away feels negative, whereas when we can just maybe see if we can experience this as sensations in the body, it might bring more of a softness to it. But most definitely when you come to a place where, you know what, I'm not liking this experience, I just want to go back to the breath, that's probably wise. Because either, it feels overwhelming or there's not enough space in the mind yet to be curious about it, then you really want to go back to the breath. But when and then it might call to you again in the future, and you might again say, okay, well, let me just see what it's like to be with this. Is there some wisdom to be gained here? And maybe if only the wisdom is that you notice, oh wow, one moment I'm with the breath, and another moment something more interesting or stronger arises. So that really speaks about, or is a teaching about the impermanence inside the body, right? Where one moment there's the breath, and maybe even within the breath, you might find at times, oh, this breath doesn't actually feel comfortable tonight. Maybe my nose is stuffed and I'm coming here and expecting to have a smooth breath, but then you're finding, oh, I can barely really breathe. And so then that might become something to observe in terms of just impermanence and getting, more familiar with that teaching inside your own body. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, there's one more person.
It was very meaningful to me when you talked about that it isn't a mistake. And I have found that, I could say, it's a mistake what my body's doing and it's wrong. And then go to a loved one saying, I felt like my body betrayed and your expression of there are no mistakes. I just wondered if you could speak a bit about that.
So just a comment about how I shared that whatever we might not experience in the body is not a mistake. And tonight and what you're referring to is, I think, about when I spoke about pain, right? So it's not a mistake that we experience discomfort in the body and disease.
And sickness, that they aren't mistakes.
Yeah, so that they're basically the nature of the body, like those reflections that I shared this evening about this body, or I'm subject to aging, I'm subject to sickness, I'm subject to death. What the Buddha talked about, that we all as human beings experience that in one way or another inside the body. All of our bodies go through that. Just like every body that is born will live and will eventually die, some of us sooner rather than later. And yeah, to just know that we're all here and one day we will not be here. It's not a mistake. It's just the nature of this body to go through this process of life and death, and how death is really part of life. And maybe sometimes even just, if it feels hard to look at sort of the ultimate physical death, to maybe just even begin to notice death sort of day by day, how even us being here now and then in 10 minutes we won't be, that's in a way experiencing a death, right? Because one moment we're here and then we're gone. Doesn't mean that our body is completely gone, but we can familiarize ourselves with, yeah, that's the nature of this experience in a human body. So I don't know if that's helpful or, yeah. Okay. Yes.
This talk about aging, sickness / pain and death, I find extremely helpful. So thank you so much. I wanted to ask. I think you used the phrase having compassion toward one's pain,
Mm-hmm.
and as I think about that, what I think you're saying is, when you say compassion toward pain, you mean rather than having a hatred or aversion and trying to push it away, see if you can open to it and take it in. Is that what you mean by compassion toward the pain?
Yeah, so the question is having compassion towards the body when it's in pain, does that refer to not being aversive to the experience, right? And it's that, and it can even be more visceral, where I often, when I go through something difficult in the body, and maybe you experience that a lot too, or practice this when you are going through the hip replacement and the pain, I often just place a hand on my heart and just say, I'm so sorry that this is happening right now. I know it's really challenging. I know it's painful, and I'm here. I'm here to witness it. And sometimes I find that really helpful, that touch. And so it can be a direct experience of touch in terms of offering compassion to the body as well, not just not feeling aversion, but an active compassion towards oneself, towards one's body. Yeah. It's 8:05. I'm here and can stay, but I just wanted to say that if you have to leave, please feel free. But I really, really appreciate the questions this evening. It's wonderful that you're engaging with the practice in this way. So, yes.
Focusing on the part that I was in pain,
Mm-hmm.
I found myself playing with the question of what my goal is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's my question to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes very helpful to know, okay, my goal is just to focus on that part of my stomach that I was focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
Or is my goal for the pain to go away?
Mm-hmm.
Or is my goal, at one point I switched to just appreciating my body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's a goal,
Mhm.
but maybe just something about goals.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because what comes to mind is again sort of this teaching of the Buddha of impermanence, where, well, maybe in one moment the goal could be this, and then another moment it shifts and you feel like, well, it's really maybe about softening into the experience and just being with what is, and another time it's just to really experience what's happening, experience the impermanence. I think it can shift, and I think your inner wisdom can tell you if that's important to you to have a goal. Or sometimes when people are more goal oriented, what would it be like to just soften into the experience and just to witness it and open up my awareness to what's actually happening and see it shift moment by moment, instead of, maybe even practicing sometimes not having a goal. But if it's important to you, I think what's helpful with that is to set an intention in the beginning of the practice of what that might be. And then intention sounds a little bit softer than a goal, like I have to find this out today in meditation. And rather than, okay, I would like to be just present, or I'm coming here with an intention to just be present to the moment by moment experience in my meditation, in terms of my breath, in terms of my body sensations, in terms of my feelings, in terms of my thoughts, and just sort of allow it to come and go. I think Jack Kornfield always says, allow everything to rise and fall like waves of the ocean around the breathing. And then when something becomes strong, to maybe let the breath go for a while, and then bring a sense of curiosity, what's present. So maybe just maybe the goal is just simply to be present moment by moment to what arises and to see it arise, stay, and fall away again, because that's really what the Buddha taught, right? This teaching of impermanence and how it helps us to move closer towards full awakening or towards total mental health, as that Bhikkhu Buddhi was saying. So, yeah. Yes.
That question about the goal reminded me of an experience I had along these lines where I was having ringing in my ears a lot, and I don't know if anybody's had that, but it's very bothersome. And for a long time, I tried to like push it away consciously, and then while doing meditation, finally I decided to just try to sit with it. And as I sat with it, I realized, and I sort of saw and learned that a lot of the pain from it wasn't the ringing, which wasn't even that loud. It was, I saw the aversion that I had to it. I realized so much of the pain was really coming from my unhappiness and not thinking I deserved to have that. I didn't want the pain. I didn't want it there. So I don't think the actual like ringing really changed that much, but I was able to kind of like see my attitude towards it in a different way, which I don't think I would have got to had I not tried to sit with it.
I'm thinking here to myself, wow, you must be a quite advanced practitioner to be giving that ear ringing and to come to that conclusion that it's not really so much about the ear ringing that creates the dukkha, but rather the reaction to it. And I can only relate to it in the sense that my partner has gone through incredible ear ringing after a ear surgery, and she's a very long-term practitioner, but that particular ear ringing was almost like, it feels like, wow, this is really, really hard to practice with. But I think it sounds like you've come to a place where you could soften around it and gain some wisdom from it, that what the suffering is really about that comes on is more related to the aversion. But I just want to say that that still sounds like a pretty hard practice. And just like with you after the hip surgery, it's not like, oh, well, it's just hip pain, I'm sitting here. I think it takes a lot. It takes a lot of practice, and just to give it to oneself sometimes when it just feels too much and you're just thinking, you know what, I can't sit with this today. I'm going to go out for a walk, or I'm going to read a book. Meditation is not always about sitting through something or striving for something, but sometimes it can be more useful just to say, you know what, this is not working today, and I just can't hold space for it. But in your case, it sounds like you could, and that you came to a place of wisdom with it. So thank you for your teaching. Appreciate it. Yeah. It's really, really a pleasure to be here and to have spent this time here with you this evening, and the same online. I'm looking to the side because you're to the side online, but I think you're actually seeing me straight up, so I should just be looking straight up. But wherever you are, for all the beings here, seen and unseen, I say thank you, and I appreciate that we could come together as a community this evening. So thank you. And I think Jeff comes up and gives a little spiel at the end. I don't know if you want to come? Is this your time?
No, we're good.
We're good. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Be well, everybody.